What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Armchair Producers. I am George Terran, alongside the man, the myth, the soon-to-be captain of the seas, Mr. Travis Croft. How are you, sir?
Gar. I'm okay. Yes, I will be joining the Navy. It seemed like a good decision at the time. I may be overweight and 42, but obviously they're desperate for sailors.
You're never too old to start.
They said they were the Navy. They weren't wearing uniforms or anything, but it sounded legit.
Fair enough. Yeah, these kind of backstreet recruitment stations, they're getting popular.
I came by an email. They said they need a Prince of Nigeria. Apparently, it's very well paid.
There you go.
I've got that going for me. I was just glad that I overlooked my complete and utter, lack of qualifications or physical fitness or, desire or want to be at sea. But, I went on a ferry a couple of weeks ago in San Francisco, so I assume it's a little bit like that.
There you go. Oh dear, that's going to be fun. We were just debating whether or not we'd be doing a podcast while he is on the high seas, but with dial-up internet, expensive internet, and the fact that Chris Jericho does a podcast from his rock and roll ferry of delight and wonder.
He does multiple podcasts. He does his podcast. They do 83 weeks.
Yeah. And rumor is they're going to be broadcasting an AEW Dynamite show from there in the new year as well.
They're definitely doing an AEW show on the boat.
Yeah.
So at the very least, I would imagine they will record it and play it back at some point. I'd actually really freaking love to go to that. That actually looks really, for a wrestling fan, it actually looks like a lot of fun.
That would be fucking cool.
It is sold out. It is fucking expensive.
Yeah.
And it's based out of Florida, which means it would be add another $2,500.
Yeah, just a wee bit expensive.
There also about thereabouts, and that's not even including the money you have to spend on the boat. So, unless I win the Tats Lotto tomorrow night, I'm not going this year, but maybe next.
Have you been, speaking loosely of wrestling, have you been keeping a tab on the newly launched All Elite Wrestling on TNT and the internets?
A little bit. I don't watch a lot of professional wrestling anymore because it's all on Foxtel in Australia. I don't think it's on KO Sports, which is the Foxtel streaming sports network, which I had shamefully admit I do subscribe to. But you get your football, your cricket, your basketball, your, watch field hockeys and stuff like that. Most of any sport you can imagine comes through KO. But I don't think professional wrestling is one of them. So it's behind a paywall, so I don't. And besides the fact it's on Foxtel, the WWE's, whenever I see what they're doing, I go, well, that just doesn't look very exciting. But funnily enough, just this weekend, actually, I caught probably an hour or so of AEW on YouTube.
Oh, was this one of their dark shows?
AEW Dark. This was a show, but it was pretty much on air, which is a very interesting approach. I don't know that WWE do this.
They do not.
But it was on YouTube basically right up until the second when the first match for the pay-per-view was about to start. Then they obviously they cut off the YouTube feed because they want you to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's actually a really interesting way of sort of getting people excited about a pay-per-view and giving them a taste of what is coming up at the same time as you're giving something away for free, which you'd probably be having anyway. Most pay-per-views have dark matches. They're just streaming it on YouTube.
Yeah, well, that's part and parcel of the professional wrestling community is dark matches, where for anyone who doesn't know, it's almost like a test bed for like wrestlers to, practice in front of an audience for one thing, get a test idea of how a particular feud might go over with a crowd, particular move sets and things like that. And very rarely they get to be kind of shown off to audiences. So AEW using this these dark episodes. It's a really good way of just kind of getting some of the lower card wrestlers a bit more exposure, developing some more of those stories, particularly as the weekly show on for Dynamite is still so fresh. Kind of having a run to catch up and build these storylines for the pay-per-views, which they just had of Full Gear.
The other way to think of it is also these are the support acts.
Yeah.
The main wrestling. So when you go see a band, they'll have a support act. These guys are sort of there to warm the audience up, the live audience usually.
Mm-hmm.
But as you say, it's interesting that AEW are now using this as a bit of a teaser, bit of a taste for people who, haven't bought the pay-per-view. They might get stuck watching the YouTube thing like I did the other day and go, hey, well, I'd like to buy it. I mean, the problem that AEW have with Australia at the moment is there's no easy way to buy it that I know about. I mean,
you can stream it on FITE.tv.
Yeah, I think I looked at that when they did their first one, and the price was extraordinary.
Yeah, it's like $30 for a pay-per-view.
Oh, they've come down. I think the first one they did was like $50, and that's like way too much for a wrestling pay-per-view. And look, it's fair enough. They're new. They're very, very new. So, I mean, I guess finding somewhere you can easily sell your product a little bit harder. I mean, I don't even know if their TV show is on any Australian cable streaming network or anything like that. But
not that I'm aware of.
If it's on Foxtel, I don't know. So, but they're new. They'll get there. I watched some of the reviews of a pay-per-view on the weekend on YouTube, and the reviews were all pretty good. Generally, they did a pretty reasonable job. I like the fact that they're not trying to do what WWE does, because you're never going to do it as well as they do it, right? So
watch some of their recent shows and you'll be thinking they can't do it as good as they used to either.
They certainly can't, but I mean, they've got a reputation, and they've got they've got the publicity, and they've got the history.
That is true.
So I mean, I think it sounds ridiculous because a lot of people will think we're being silly talking about professional wrestling, but there are millions and millions of people around the world who very much enjoy it. There's a lot of space in the market for what it can be, believe it or not. Like back in the old days, even going back 20 years, there was at least 2, maybe 3 high-profile American promotions, and they just sort of timing didn't work out well. Two of them went broke, and of course, the last man standing has had a monopoly ever since. But there's a lot of space like that WWE has chosen or has been unable to fill in the appetite for what people like in professional wrestling. And so AEW, I think, have done well to sort of slot into that space. And if they stick to their knitting, as the Australian government likes to say sometimes, stick to your knitting. Don't try and compete with WWE. Just do what you do really well.
Exactly.
I suspect they'll continue to do well. And overall, I think the WWE initially was quite resistant to it, from what I read. But I think it will work out best for everybody if there's more
competition is healthy.
Yeah, I mean, and real competition. There have been some attempts in the past, but they were pretty lousy.
Yeah. I've been watching quite a lot of the AEW because through AEW, and thanks to friend of the show, provider of the music, Louise Rossetti, she kind of introduced me to more of the independent scene wrestling, where there is one of my favorite joys in the world of comedy wrestling routines. And there are 2 in particular, and one of them has recently started going over to some AEW shows. His name's Orange Cassidy, and he is kind of colloquially referred to as the sloth of wrestling because he always has his hands in his pockets, and it's incredibly safe wrestling that he does, but it's kind of like limp little kicks and stuff like that. But the kind of announcers are always kind of in on the joke, and it's like, oh my God, it's brutality. How is the guy standing? And it's really funny. And he had a phenomenal comedy wrestling match with a lovely, lovely, genuinely beautiful man who goes by the wrestling moniker Gentleman Jervis. And Gentleman Jervis is like all about happy positivity. He's fantastic on Twitter, talking openly about mental illness and depression and things like that. He's got a dog called Lord Booplesnoot, which is fantastic. And there was a part in one of their matches where Gentleman Jervis, as a pseudo submission hold, rocks Orange Cassidy to sleep, lies him down, and is telling the crowd to shush and keep quiet so he doesn't wake this adult baby effectively. It's a brilliant. It's so different to anything that if you grew up watching WWE in the Attitude Era or the Ruthless Aggression or anything of the current stuff. That's kind of what you generally think of when you think of wrestling, and suddenly seeing these wonderful comedy acts that do something entirely different. And when the announcers and everyone gets behind it, it's just so delightful. So AEW bringing more of this into the more sort of like big stream mass audience market is wonderful.
I mean, I don't particularly like that kind of thing. I mean, it's a little bit like breaking the fourth wall in film, right? Like, some can do it, but yeah, man, you've got to be good to pull it off well. Like Deadpool films, they do really well, but like other films where you break the fourth wall, you're like, no, it's completely pulling me out of a film, and you're not suspending disbelief anymore. But what I'll say is, there's a place for that in the market, obviously, right?
Yes.
You like it. A lot of people like it.
Yeah.
WWE will never do that because that's not how they roll. They've never done that kind of break the fourth wall kind of comedy stuff. They'll have comedy wrestlers, but I don't even know if they do anymore, but they have in the past.
They do.
But that's what AEW can start to do. There's this space in the market. No one's doing that. So there's a whole bunch of people like, that kind of thing I think has come out of places like Japan and Mexico. AEW smartly can look at what's gone down well in Japan and Mexico. Like there's a guy in Japan I used to do who guys would grab his crotch and they would act like his dick was so powerful that he was
still going.
And so I think there's something in the States doing that act now, but again, that's something that's come out of Japanese wrestling as a shtick. But again, that's something you're never going to see on WWE television.
No.
So, AEW to drive into and own that space.
And I feel like the latest pay-per-view, which was Full Gear, really showed that off in a lot of ways. They didn't have a comedy match like I'm talking about with Gentleman Jervis and Orange Cassidy, but the wrestling matches that they had were very diverse. There was real high flyers with the Young Bucks and there's a Riley. Hello, Riley. Gorgeous boy. So they had the typical more traditional kind of Western wrestling style with Chris Jericho versus Cody for the belts. They had some fantastic women's wrestling, which was both the champion Riho was against Io Sakurai, and they were both
Japanese wrestlers.
And they had a very different style, particularly Riho, who's the women's champion. She's like 97 pounds or something. She's ridiculously light, but it's such a different style of wrestling that you just don't assume if you've been brought up on WWE. And those two have known each other for like 20 years or something.
Yeah, they've worked together each other like 1,000 times or something stupid like that.
So they know how to put on a really good show, and they did a really good demonstration of it. And then at the end, there was the unsanctioned match between Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley, and that was basically a death match. And Western audiences, you're never going to see that. Extreme Championship Wrestling, when they were around, they got close. And anyone who sort of like knows the history of Mick Foley or Terry Funk has a very good idea of it. But it's something that has more or less been exclusively a Japanese product. And suddenly having that as the final match of a big pay-per-view based in the States, that's a big statement. So this show really offered, we can do what WWE does, but we're also offering you a lot more. So if you don't like this, there's a good chance you probably like the next match or the one before it you really liked. There's a lot of tastes going on, so it's really nice to have variety.
I'd just like to give a shout out to, and there is an Australian who is, well, I don't think she's officially signed with AEW. I think she actually appeared in AEW Dark on a weekend, and it was her second appearance in an AEW show. She was in a Battle Royale, I think, at one of their previous pay-per-views. Shazza McKenzie, Australian women's wrestling superstar, kicking ass, taking names. There was a bit of a hashtag going around, obviously not super trending, bit of a hashtag in AEW circles today going around, sign Shazza. If you're an American, it's Shazza McKenzie. I don't know. You can't get that Shaz, mate. Shazza.
Yeah, you need to put the nasal into when you're saying Shazza.
Shazza McKenzie. I follow her. I've actually been following her career for a while. She's been, kicking around in Australia for probably 10 years doing independent, overall independent shows in Australia. But doing various promotions around the country, working her tail off, and she's a pretty talented young lady, right? And she's pretty determined, and I hope she gets a go over in AEW. There are a lot of Australian talent being signed these days. The Iconics in WWE, the women's tag team champions, are Australian. They are terrible wrestlers, but they are Australian. And just recently, a friend of mine knows this guy. He's a friend of mine's personal trainer. He used to wrestle here in Australia under the name Elliot Sexton. I don't know what he's going to be wrestling under. He's been signed to a development contract by WWE. Another Australian girl named Indy Hartwell, that's her wrestling name here in Australia, has also just got a contract. So there's a lot of Aussie talent working
one of the
their
big
way
ones. One of the
leagues.
big ones in the US is Buddy Murphy as well. He came up through NXT, and he
was the cruiserweight champion. Now I don't know if he still is. I'm sure he's not, but he was. He won the cruiserweight title at the Melbourne show they did last year.
So good to see some homegrown talent reaching out to an international audience.
When I was growing up, there were no Australians on television. Like on WWE, there are no Aussies. Like they used to get the video. You get the WWE videos because it wasn't on TV here.
Of course.
You get the videos, and there'd be a sticker on the top front that said New Zealand's own Bushwhackers. That was as close as we had to Australian talent on WWE, and it was a bit exciting.
I remember the Bushwhackers
In the Hall of Fame.
I'm wondering, were they actually from New Zealand?
They were.
Ah, okay, cool.
There's a fantastic YouTube channel I'm a big fan of called Wrestling Bios. If you're a wrestling fan, I highly recommend checking it out. And he did a bio of the Bushwhackers just recently, and they've got quite a ridiculous history. Like, we're called this, and then this guy left, and this guy joined, and they were called something else, and then they joined another team. They were called the Sheepherders. Then the guy left, they got someone else. The guy who originally left wanted to come back, but he couldn't come back, so he started a new team called the Original Sheepherders. It was like, it's all over the shop. But we had no idea as kids. We just enjoyed the fact that it was sort of kind of almost from Australia, because fuck knows, there was no one else.
Closest we're going to get right now.
Pretty much. Next one after that was Nathan Jones, and he was horrible. And best remembered for being killed by Brad Pitt at the start of Troy.
Oh, yeah.
He was in Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect to be talking about wrestling on this podcast, but it's an interesting change of direction. It's almost talking about sports.
Almost. It's about as close as I will get. Well, on to more traditional Armchair Producers fare. What have you been watching? Because it's been a while since we did a show. So have you managed to consume some interesting content?
Yes. Probably most of it I'm forgetting. But a few things that come to mind straight away. There was a new series premiered on Australian telly last week. It's probably already gone to air in its original country, being from the UK. And that show is Years and Years. Have you heard of it?
Heard of it, not watched any yet.
It only premiered last week on SBS, so I think it was SBS. So I think you'll find it's on SBS On Demand. Australian fans who want to watch it, so it's free. I think it's already aired in the UK. I think it's on HBO in the States. So I would highly recommend it. Now, the synopsis of a show, it's a short run series, I guess you'd say, somewhere between a mini series and a series. And the synopsis on IMDb follows a busy family from Manchester with their lives converging on one crucial night in 2019. Now, knowing what I do about you and how you feel about people from Manchester, and
I have
Scousers.
with the people from Manchester. I do not want angry Manchester mail.
Or have you? Well, you did. Actually, when I first visited Manchester, I actually landed in Manchester and actually caught the train to Liverpool. And George took that opportunity to educate me about what a Scouser was. And put me through a lot of TV clips. It was a TV show, wasn't it? Called Scousers?
Yeah. There was that was from Harry Enfield and Chums. It was the Three Scousers.
Anyway, so this is set in Manchester. Now, that synopsis follows a busy family from Manchester with their lives converging on one crucial night in 2019. Is a bit short. It's so much more than that. It's 6 episodes. Each episode runs for about an hour. And the idea behind the show is it's really an exploration of the next 15 years of our history that's coming. So it's a little bit Black Mirror-ish in the sense it's kind of making a few predictions about, potential, technological leaps and what the next leap of technology might be, how will we be interacting with it. But it's not quite so Black Mirror-y, and it's not,
That's not really the focus.
Not really the focus. It's like it's the background. It's obviously, we know that, if you think about 20 years ago, what tech was like then, or 15 years ago, and compare it to now, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. And I think it's trying to think the same way, but it is very Black Mirror in a sense that it's quite pessimistic about the future. So it sort of imagines a future sort of continuing down the same sort of path that we're following today, where populists continue to rise, strongmen continue to take over places like Russia, and the refugee situation, which in Europe at the moment is the last 5 years has been pretty bad. It imagines a future where it gets even worse.
Right.
And yeah, I'm not doing a very good job selling this, but essentially, like it sort of follows this family's journey through that future.
Okay.
So it'll skip a couple of years at a time in a quick montage.
Right.
So we'll start in 2019. That's where we sort of start our story of this family, where they get together at their grandmother's house for her birthday or whatever it is. And then, something momentous happens on this particular day, which I won't spoil for you, which kind of is one of those events like you go, oh, fuck. Nothing's ever going to be the same again after this. And it isn't. But then we sort of follow this family's journey through the future that event creates.
Okay.
And it is quite pessimistic. If you've had a bad day at work, or your girlfriend just broke up with you, or Vladimir won't return your calls, the
Russian bots don't love you anymore.
If Facebook won't let you spam anymore, maybe give this one a miss and watch the one I'm going to talk about in a minute.
Now, are we talking similar kind of level of like emotional drama as like Breaking Bad?
No, I don't think it's quite on that level. I mean, in a sense, Breaking Bad had 5 seasons to build their relationship with the characters, right? You got to know Walter and all those guys a lot over a very long period of time. It's just got 6 hours. So I don't know that I care about the characters quite as much as I do about Walter and Walter Jr. and Skylar, etc. So it certainly doesn't have that level of an emotional involvement, but it has more of a Black Mirror feeling to it, kind of like, it's too real, Roy. It's too real.
Okay.
It's a kind of thing where you go, oh, that's a bit shit. And what's worse is I can totally see that happening.
Okay.
So yeah, but as I said, it doesn't have that intense focus on technology as being the catalyst for these problems.
I get
But
you. Okay.
Black Mirror kind of does. It's all
Mm.
about what is technology doing to us. I think Black
Mm.
Mirror. This is just technology is there, but it's hardly the focus of the show. It's more about what are we doing to us,
Mm.
and how shit can we be to each other. And that sounds depressing, and it is. But my God, it's compelling. Like I could not look away for the 2 hours of the 2 episodes they showed last week.
Well, it's got Emma Thompson's in it, and she is very rare to ever put in a bad performance. And Rory Kinnear is Rory Kinnear is fantastic. Anyone who this connection to Black Mirror, obviously, the infamous pig episode of Black Mirror, Rory Kinnear is in that. He was also fantastic as the monster in Penny Dreadful. And the writer of the show is Russell T Davies, who helped reinvigorate Doctor Who back in the early 2000s. So it's got a pedigree to it.
He's got a pedigree. And I was just going to say that Emma Thompson doesn't do telly much.
No.
I know it's kind of becoming normal now for, for big movie stars to do TV.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Emma Thompson's pretty picky with that kind of thing. Like, yeah, it's got a pedigree. The acting's incredible. There'll be a lot of, for me, for me, if you said Rory Kinnear, he'd be one of those guys you go, I know that guy from stuff. I couldn't quite narrow down to what it was until you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
And there'll be a lot of those through the show. I'd be like, oh, I've seen him in things.
Yeah.
It's really, really well made. It's well acted. It's well written. It's my kind of TV, frankly. Depressing, time traveling, dark, pessimistic. But I think it's a warning from history that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, I loved it. It's some of the best. I think it's what's interesting is some of the best sci-fi television is coming out of the UK these days. I think the best sci-fi television is coming out of the UK these days.
They seem to have had a bit of a renaissance because in the kind of late 60s, 70s, and early 80s, there was a lot of really compelling, interesting, dark sci-fi that was coming through that didn't really get much exposure outside of the UK, but it's kind of got cult following, like Blake Seven. No, that was the US.
I think it was the UK, wasn't it?
It might have been. I don't know. I can't remember, but there was a bunch, particularly sort of like Quatermass. There was a string of Quatermass movies. There was a Quatermass miniseries, which I've talked about in the past, and that was bleak as fuck, and wonderful. And
like it was the UK.
Yeah, and they then kind of went into more of a comedy thing from the late 70s through the 80s and 90s, where you had stuff like Young Ones and Blackadder and that kind of stuff. And then the US took on a lot with so many of their kind of iconic series like Seinfeld and that sort of stuff. It's nice to see bleak sci-fi coming back to the UK. Maybe it says something about the politics, considering.
I just think maybe it's you're on the edge there sometimes. You feel like you're on the edge of Europe. You guys were the last one standing against the Nazis, so.
True.
They kind of wonder if that kind of. I've heard it said that Japan being the first sort of post-apocalyptic society, in the sense that they were the only ones who've ever been nuked, that led to things like Godzilla being a creation that came out of Japan in the 50s and 60s, and that sort of wave of Japanese monster films. But there's something interesting in the UK. If you go back to Humans. It was a great TV show. Black Mirror originally came out of the UK as well.
Yes, it did.
And now, years and years. As I said, seriously do yourself a favor and check it out. If you like Black Mirror, I think you're gonna like it. It's and if you're in Australia, it's on SBS On Demand for free anyway. So, I can't remember the last.
I was saying, considering you have to spend so much on individual subscriptions to usually get anything that's good, it's nice to have something that's on the free ones.
Exactly, especially if you're an Aussie. If you're a foreigner, well, get yourself a VPN. That'll probably work. So that's one. The other one is probably the more if your girlfriend did break up with you, Vladimir is not returning your calls this week. If you're getting impeached, the new season of Rick and Morty has just premiered this weekend past in the US. Season 4, episode 1. I just got around to watching this evening. Rick die, Edge to Morty. Rick die, repeat. Rick brings Morty to a planet containing crystals that show whoever is touching him all the ways they may die depending on their choices. And this is classic Rick and Morty.
It maintains the quality?
Maintain the quality. I'd suggest most people. It's got a 9.3 on IMDb, this episode. But, I mean, Rick and Morty fans, can you really trust them? They're kind of toxic.
Kind of insane.
But, look, I felt like Rick and Morty, when I first started watching it, I think the real pleasure for me was it was like watching a show where I already knew all the characters. And watching the first couple of seasons, it had an instant familiarity to it, which, I mean, makes it doesn't sound good, but it's like to go
it makes it easy to invest.
Many years ago, the Sweetest Thing by U2 came out. Probably the last decent song they ever released, in my opinion. And my dad and I were watching TV, and it came on Rage or whatever TV show we were watching, and he's like, "That's really good." I'm like, "You know what's great about a classic is you feel like you know it and love it the minute you hear it. Like it's instantly familiar to you. Instantly, like it's a song that you've known for years."
Yeah,
and that's what I mean. Apart from the fact that you two have been recording the same song for 30 years, that probably helps. But I feel like the same thing was initially the best episodes of Rick and Morty. It felt like immediately like this was my favorite show, and I'm just jumping back into my favorite show. And it's easy to watch, yet at the same time, it's interesting and challenging. If you actually want to go back, you go back and watch it again and again and again. There's stuff you missed 5 times. So it's a long-winded way of saying it's what you want from a Rick and Morty episode. Obviously, it's taking the Mickey out of The Edge of Tomorrow, which is a great film. Not quite so much. It's not a straight piss take of that, like The Simpsons would probably do these days.
There's more using that as like a launching point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you can probably put the two pieces together. But characters are going to die quite a bit in this episode.
Yeah.
But the wonderful thing about the universe they've created is that we know that they can do whatever the fuck they want to their characters and put them straight back or that kind of thing. It's a 22-minute TV show, right? So there's only so much I can say about it other than to say Rick and Morty is still, at least if the rest of the season is at this level, it's still probably one of the best shows on TV. And it's the equal of anything The Simpsons ever did.
Excellent. Good to hear. So often these shows will have stonking first couple of seasons and then it just dives off a cliff because it jumped the shark too soon or anything like that. And I think the premise that we are so early introduced to with Rick and Morty is, I don't know whether that show, the Rick and Morty show and the Rick and Morty formula, could actually jump the shark, because they've kind of already jumped the shark and succeeded. They turned Rick into a fucking pickle.
Pickle, yeah.
So, they're like, okay, we got away with that. People fucking loved it. They would probably have to work at really fucking up, is my point.
Yeah. I think you're right. The only other show I think it's even close to it right now is South Park. And in a way, that's quite remarkable considering South Park's been on the air for 22 years.
Yeah.
But I did catch a new episode of the latest season just the other day, Let Them Eat Goo. Citizens of South Park are moving towards a completely plant-based diet. Cartman is pretty sure the new food in the cafeteria gave him a heart attack. I mean, obviously, South Park's genius has always been that they recorded in, a 2-week turnaround or something like that?
8 days.
8 days or something crazy like that, so they can constantly stay on top of things that are topical. And so, which is very, obviously, I don't think anybody else has ever done that before or since in animation. So, you're watching stuff about a TV show about something that happened a month ago, or 2 months ago.
The closest that ever got with that was Spitting Image. As the puppets. That's why.
Puppets are not quite the same thing, are they? But actually fully animated. So, there's quite a remarkable edge they have over anything else.
Yeah.
Because they can make their content seem very current and relevant. And it's not like, when I think a few years ago, The Simpsons made an episode about World of Warcraft, and you're like, World of Warcraft is so last year, guys. Like, I mean, it felt really dated by the time it came out. Whereas when South Park did the episode about World of Warcraft, it was really on point.
It was
so with the whole push at the moment for things going plant-based, and in Australia, we've just in the last few months launched the Impossible Whopper. It seemed incredibly relevant, and it's still brutally funny and biting and on point. So I think probably not quite as good as Rick and Morty these days, but geez, the fact that they're still making this kind of quality after 22 years, they're one of a few ones who've avoided jumping the shark.
Yeah. And I guess because they are able to stay very fresh and so up to date, it's kind of hard. And particularly how they do bring politics into it so frequently, social politics. And the social politics of the modern world are fucking weird. And they're easy to take the piss out of and parody and mock and kind of unparody to bring out the humor. So they've kind of got that nice safety net. But I
don't know if you saw the whole thing about China, where they recently, stuck the boots into China a little bit. Their previous episode before the one I saw was called Banned in China.
Oh, yeah.
And they made they obviously got taken off. South Park's been taken off the air in China as a result. And of course, that was comment on the NBA and Blizzard sucking, communist party dick because they don't want to lose money. I don't know if you haven't seen it, guys. The South Park guys released an absolutely hilarious statement about about being banned in China, and like there's stuff like, "Yay, the sorghum harvest this year is going to be great," and stuff like that. It was very amusing. It's like the fact that they just, I mean, if you're Seth and Trey, surely you've got enough in the bank now to go, China doesn't like us, who cares? How big a fan of South Park could they have been?
Yeah.
But that's probably it's the news I've got to report. I'm sure there's other things I've seen in the last couple of weeks that are not worth mentioning. I did see the news that Stephen King Netflix movie, The Tall Grass, The Long Grass.
Oh yeah.
And
I've got that on my to watch list.
Yeah. I think it's The Tall Grass, if I'm not mistaken. The fact that I can't really remember what it's called tells you a lot.
It's a good sign.
Yeah, I will keep this brief and say don't. Just don't.
Now, my question, spinning off of the Stephen King connection, is: do you think you're going to go and watch Dr. Sleep? Because that has just come out.
I'm not champing at the bit. I like Ewan McGregor. The reviews have been pretty good. It's got a 60 Metascore. Yeah. Middling. I just feel like The Shining is so fucking good. Like, it's perfect. And, Stephen King never liked it.
No.
He hated it. He went off and made an awful miniseries. He bought the rights back.
Yeah.
Went and made a miniseries in the 90s, which, he should be embarrassed about. And now he's pimping out Kubrick's legacy now for money. I know he wrote the book and he wrote the sequel himself, but yeah, I don't know.
I read an interesting article from him about it saying, oh yeah, Dr. Sleep fixes so many of the problems that happened in The Shining. It's like, Interesting.
Yeah, the fact that he still thinks there were flaws and he hasn't just come out and said, you know what? I was bloody wrong. This thing's fucking great.
Yeah.
And my mini series was terrible. Kudos to Kubrick; he was amazing. You know, the fact that The Shining, the original Shining, like I've talked about it before in this show, but Room 287, is that the film's name?
Oh,
But the
with John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson?
but there's actually a documentary about The Shining.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
I can't remember the exact name of it. I will find it, but there's an actual documentary which I saw at MIF many years ago.
Room 237.
So sorry?
Room 237.
There we go. So it's a documentary all about the conspiracy theories or just the fan theories about what The Shining's really about. And I'm astounded it's only got a 6.2 on IMDb. I've seen people say it's boring, and I'm like, my goodness, people, you guys should just go back and watch Michael Bay films. It's so good. It's so good. Like, I mean, I'm not someone who's ever spent a lot of time dwelling about what the original Shining's about, but I just like to enjoy it for what it is, without trying to, delve into what its deeper meaning might have been. But the people behind Room 237 have spent a lot of their lives thinking about it. So I've talked about it before. It's various interpretations of Kubrick's film. The fact that someone can make an entire film about what that other film is actually about and still come to no concrete conclusions, I think is a mark of its pure genius.
Yeah.
It didn't need a sequel. It's it's King and whoever else is getting paid for this riding on a genius coattails, and everybody tells me that the guy who made it is actually pretty good. And that House on Haunted Hill or whatever it is, The Haunting of House Hill, is good. People keep telling me that. I haven't got around to watching it. But Mike Flanagan,
is it the same guy?
Sorry, same guy.
Oh, okay.
Mike Flanagan wrote and directed, or at least he is certainly key to Haunting of House Hill. As I said, I can't pass judgment. I've not seen it, but everybody says it's good. I just don't think there is only one Kubrick, right? And you might be good at making a scary TV show, but it's a hell of a step up to try and, hold a torch to arguably the greatest horror film of all time. So that's my way of saying if it's on a plane somewhere and I'm flying somewhere and it's on the plane, I'll watch it. But I don't think I'll be rushing out to the cinemas to see it just yet.
I'm curious about it. I don't think I'm going to go and see it at the cinema. I feel like I've been bitten too many times with Stephen King adaptations in the movies, and at best it's like, all right, I'll probably forget about that in the next 2 days. At worst, it'll be fucking Maximum Overdrive or The Dark Tower. So yeah, I'm happy to watch Stephen King on the small screen. I don't need to see it. I don't think tell a lie. It Chapter 1. I haven't seen Chapter 2. It Chapter 1 was the last great Stephen King movie that I saw at the cinema, and that was pretty damn fantastic, actually.
I liked it, but everybody says Chapter 2 is pretty lousy.
That's what I've heard. Hey, never mind.
And I'm not. I actually sent this to someone the other day, but since I moved house in July, I've been to the cinema twice in the last 4 months. And one of those was for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the other one was for Joker. And it's not a case of there's no cinema near here. There's a cinema, very nice cinema, just up the road. It's not. I must say, I do miss my local in Epping, Reading Cinemas. Quality location.
Shout out.
Oh, it's cheap too, right? You're $15 for the premium cinema.
Quality.
But it's just I feel like it's been a very average 6 months.
Absolutely agree. I don't feel like there's been any real standouts, and I think the fact that Joker kind of came through and made like 900, and that Disney are probably gonna at least get legitimate Oscar nominations for Endgame this year as well. It's like, okay, it is not an Oscar movie at all. Nothing about it is Oscar worthy except maybe special effects. It's a huge payoff movie. That does not mean that it's not a good or enjoyable movie, people. It just means that it is not an Oscar movie. But if that
It's had a
movie,
good Academy though, right? Like when they did Lord of the Rings, I thought the first two films were better films than Return of the King.
absolutely,
But Return of the King was the one that got the Oscars.
because it was the payoff one.
It's the payoff film. So I feel like, and you're right, that's going to be Endgame this year. Infinity War was a better film,
Yeah.
But Endgame ties it all up in a bow, so it's going to get the Oscars.
Yeah. But that, I feel like that kind of speaks volumes to what we've had this year, which has been a lot of generally kind of lackluster sequels to big budget franchise movies, like, the Maleficent sequel, which came and went, the supposed star vehicle of Gemini Man for Will Smith came and died on the vine. So many movies just like got that initial big buzz push, and so many of them from Disney now, and did financially fine, but didn't really set the world alight for reviews or anything like that. So like, okay, yeah, that was enjoyable when I was sitting in the cinema watching it. I haven't thought of it since.
It's been very average. Like I'm not particularly fussy, right? I'll go see Hollywood blockbusters. There's just been very little that's caught my attention in the last few months. Said you have to go and see this. I mean, I was mildly curious, like you, about Doctor Sleep, and I'm like, I don't really want to see them shit on one of my favorite movies. I was very, very mildly curious about Terminator: Dark Fate. Interestingly, again, the reviews of that are quite good, but I kind of feel like they've burned me often enough with the Terminator films. I saw the last 3 at the cinema.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me again, it's shame on me double. Because it's 3 times. Like I saw freaking Genesis at the cinema. Jesus Christ, that was awful. I'm pretty sure they had James Cameron out shilling for that as well.
Yeah, for a time at least.
They're going, this is the best one since Terminator 2. So I'm sorry, his word doesn't hold a lot of sway with me anymore on Terminator films. So
just doing a quick Google search of films of 2019, the first 3 hits are Endgame, Joker, and Toy Story 4. Then you start to get some interesting ones like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but I think it's probably fair to say that is not the best Tarantino movie, and possibly the least worthy of any Oscar attention.
A fanboy, you had on. I mean, the worst Led Zeppelin album is still better than anything Nickelback ever released.
That's absolutely true.
Yes, it is not the worst Tarantino film of all time. That title is still comfortably held by Death Proof. But
I like Death Proof.
It's still not terrible. It's just not great.
Still better than any Nickelback album.
It's still not. It's the worst thing he's done. That's not to say, but yeah, I mean, it's a different kind of Tarantino film, as I've said before. It's a different feel to anything. I enjoyed it. Still enjoyed it, but it's not in the league with Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, and Glorious Bastards and Kill Bill for me.
Yeah, just looking, there's 3 movies that have come out this year. One of them is in sort of like limited release at the moment, and it's going to be coming to Netflix. That's Scorsese's The Irishman. That's been getting good reviews.
Very good.
Yeah. Midsummer got some very good reviews. I'd like to see that.
I have seen that. I saw that while I was in the United States. Mm-hmm. I had drunk several beers and about a bottle of wine, but I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Kind of fucked up. That gets a big fat no on the Shea scale.
Mm-hmm. The one that I've been seeing a lot of people really raving for is Parasite.
Yes, I've heard good things.
Mm-hmm. There's been some good things about Ad Astra, the Brad Pitt movie where he's in space, but I don't know, it kind of looks like it's going to be, at best, kind of I don't know, Interstellar level quality, which nothing to be sneezed at, but I don't think it's really going to be doing anything kind of jaw-droppingly incredible. I think it's going to do a solid sci-fi story with. It's probably going to be a bit of Interstellar / Contact from the trailer. That's kind of what it looks like. Interested though. Rocket Man got a lot of positive vibes off of it. Zombieland Double Tap got some good reviews. The Lighthouse got some very good reviews. The Willem Dafoe.
Year, unfortunately.
Yeah. But then looking at it, it's a lot of fucking franchise stuff. Reboots of Charlie's Angels and the Addams Family.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff that might be good, but it certainly hasn't got mainstream attention that you would normally expect for any kind of movies pushing for the Oscars.
Let's just have a look at the most important measure of what might win the Oscar next year, and that's the bookies. Irishman at $3.25 is the favorite to win Best Picture Oscar at this point in time.
Okay.
Followed by Joker, Marriage Story, Jojo Rabbit at $6 is quite interesting. I'm keen to see that one.
Okay.
The new Taika Waititi film.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 1917, Ford versus Ferrari, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Personal History of DC, Waves, Last Thing You Wanted. I've never heard of any of these films. Avengers Endgame at $51. We're getting into stuff we might have heard of. Toy Story 4, Rocket Man, Lion King. Should note Rocket Man $101, Lion King $151. Star Wars Episode 9 $151.
Wow, it hasn't even come out. There's no early reviews, and they're already putting it with that kind of odds. That's mind you, this is the finale of the Skywalker series.
Best Actor, Joaquin's unbackable. $1.30. And so on and so forth from there. Best Actress, Renee Zellweger, $1.75.
For what role?
Judy.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Judy Garland film. Scarlett Johansson at $3. And which is a little surprising. I don't see anybody here in the Best Actor or Actresses for Endgame. So I thought they might try and drop a sneaky acting Oscar in there somewhere for, people have said, Downey Jr. maybe. But obviously that's just the bookies, but they're not too keen on losing money.
That is fair.
They're usually a fair read on what might get a nomination. But you're right. It only has been an odd year, and I kind of miss going to the cinema. I really enjoy actually going to the theater. So how do we get together and release something that's worth seeing?
It'll be interesting to see what happens next year, because maybe it's just one of those years where it's kind of like, all right, we've had everything kind of, all the big franchises are coming to an end with Endgame, with Star Wars, and with things like that. So like, okay, it's all the release year and filler. It's like, oh yeah, here's a sequel to a movie that did fairly well, and it'll make us a cool 700 million worldwide. That's enough. And then next year we're going to be getting the next Chris Nolan movie, which has had a brief teaser of. We're going to start seeing more of the new phase of Marvel movies kicking in. Wonder Woman's going to be back next year. There's going to be the Harley Quinn movie.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's likely to be. I think there's probably going to be more movies that are just interesting to me next year, because of just the cycle of the directors and creators that I like. This is the year that they've been filming stuff, so it'll be released next year.
The new Rian Johnson film's out soon. Who's a favorite of yours?
Ooh, yeah, I'm looking forward to that because that looks like fun.
The new Jordan Peele film will be next year as well, I believe. So,
Oh,
doing a reboot. It's a reboot of Candyman,
that's right. Yeah.
which I hated the original. So maybe this will be good. I don't know.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Well,
you're right. It's only a strange time. Maybe it's a drain. I mean, it's interesting also to say the Irishman will be getting. It'll be very difficult for you and I to see that at the theater.
yeah.
The multiplexes are not going to be releasing it. You're going to have to hunt a bit high and low and find an independent theater who's prepared
Mm.
to show it in this country.
I
So
wonder if it will get more of a mainstream release as we tick closer to its sort of like digital distribution and closer to the Oscars, where it might get formal recognition for, oh, it's being nominated, and they go, okay, well, it's got Scorsese, it's got all these old school gangster movie names in it that people still love. So yeah, we'll give it a limited run in the reading cinemas or village cinemas or stuff like that.
there was an article about in the paper the other day saying that they're deliberately saying at this stage, no, they're not going to release it at the theater.
Oh,
It's a deliberate choice as a boycott, if you will, from the big chains in Australia because it's got a 30-day window between cinematic release and or 45 days. It's got a significantly shorter release window between when it drops at the theater and when it drops on Netflix.
yeah.
And there was you can find the article. It was in The Age, I think, if you're keen to find it. But they were vehemently against that. They are very much against that, and they were like furious, going, "No, we need." Apparently, normally there's a 90-day window,
Yeah.
agreed 90-day window between cinematic release and any kind of digital or DVD release. And they definitely want that protected, and they see this as the first shot in a war that could hurt them, if you will. So
I can understand their point of view of wanting to protect that, but at the same time, it's The Irishman. It's a Martin Scorsese gangster epic. I don't see this movie being something that would have good sustainability at the box office anyway. So it's sort of like, okay, I get the moralistic point of view, but I feel like maybe it's not necessarily the movie that you would need to actually do this with. If they were kind of like, if Disney, to bolster Disney Plus, were kind of going, yeah, Star Wars Episode 9 is going to be in the theaters and then it's going to be on Disney Plus 35 days after launch in the cinemas, I can see why they say, no, come on, fuck that. No. That's not right, because Star Wars is going to be in for a long time, or the next Marvel movie or something like that. They need at least a 2-month buffer to get to the $1 billion mark. This, I don't think it's going to be that mass market success.
I think you're right, but I think they see it as I said, I think they see it as the first shot in the war. So maybe when the Scorsese film dropping a month and a half after cinemas, in theory, you're right. It's not going to eat too deep into their profits. What I think, whether or not successful enough, but I reading between the lines of the article, what they're hoping to avoid in future is Star Wars dropping 35 days later. Now that every single freaking company, has their own bloody streaming service.
Yeah.
They are, I think, trying to cut it off at the knees to say, we aren't going to put up with this shit. And so if you decide Disney to drop, a Star Wars film, an Indiana Jones film, or whatever, a tentpole picture onto your streaming service a month after our cinematic release, it would be interesting to see if they refuse to distribute that.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to set a precedent. Is the important thing.
They would try to avoid
it, so we can too.
They don't want that to become the new norm.
Yeah, that's fair. I understand. I just, just as a layperson, is like, oh, come on. Just let me watch.
I mean, there's still plenty. We'll be able to go and see it. It'll probably play at the Astor.
Absolutely.
It'll probably play at other Palace theaters, like independent film cinema locations at the Lido up the road here in Hawthorne from me. Shout out to the Lido. We are for sale.
110%.
They're showing it. The Thornbury Picture House in Thornbury are showing it. So there'll be a few places you can see it. And I'm sure it'll do pretty well as a result. But it'd be interesting to see if this is a trend. But I think it's kind of a bit hypocritical. I mean, Scorsese was shopping us around Hollywood for a long time.
Mm.
No one would give him money for it.
Yeah.
Netflix came along and said, here's what, $70 million or whatever it was, like a bunch of money.
Yeah.
They gave him a bunch of money and said, please make us a film. Go away, as they do to some of these guys, and go, here's a pile of money, make a movie, come back to us when it's done. And pretty much, as I understand, they gave him the kind of creative control he's used to, because I doubt he would work for them otherwise. Yeah. And, well, I mean, they paid for the freaking thing, so they get to say how it gets released. I mean, there'll probably be any reason it's getting a theatre run.
Okay, we were way off. The Irishman has a Wikipedia budget of $159 million.
Okay, there you go. So that's a huge budget for a Netflix produced movie.
Yeah. And I really get their point of, in your point of shots in a war, because obviously Alfonso Cuarón, he made Roma last year, which got a lot of awards buzz and a lot of respect, and that was a big Netflix movie. This getting the big name cast behind it, as well as the still relevant big name director of Martin Scorsese for The Irishman, which is getting that the accolade buzz. We've talked about it in the past, where it's kind of, all right, it's probably already happened, the conversation between Netflix and Quentin Tarantino. And Chris Nolan, if he decides to kind of make a weird movie that he wants to make, and Warner Brothers is kind of go, you know what? Nah, Netflix would probably happily go, yeah, here's money, make it, bring it to us. It's an opportunity. And with Amazon and with Disney Plus and all these big platforms craving new content, exclusive content for their platforms, I can see the point of why they'd be very particular and protective about it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I just think it's a losing battle, right? The future is streaming to a large degree. I don't know that we're going to move Netflix stuff on there just yet. The Marvel level kind of Star Wars level kind of thing. I think that's going to be a cinema experience for a while to come. Mm-hmm. But I think, as you sort of noted, those kind of directors who are auteurs and perhaps don't have, apart from Tarantino, at times Tarantino and Nolan had that massive box office appeal, that when they want to make that little niche project, right, that Nolan wants to make a movie that all of a sudden no one in Hollywood's too keen to make, he's going to get the money from Netflix from now on, or he's going to get the money from Amazon, or he's going to get the money from Disney, or he's going to get the money from Facebook. Facebook Watch is a thing, right? So they're making shows now. They're going to make, so you're going to get money from Apple. So, there's a lot of people in the market right now who have a lot of money to spend on content. So the studios, they're not going to be what they were 50 years ago. They're not going to be what they were 10 years ago. And if that means we see less films at the cinema, I think that's disappointing. But, they may have to adjust at the end if they only get a 45-day window. That probably just means you're going to pay double for your Coke and popcorn. Yeah.
I kind of wonder if we won't end up seeing an evolution of the independent cinema scene where they get backed by Netflix or by Amazon or the Disney cinemas and things like that, where it's like, okay, we will always have their movies in rotation, and it kind of becomes an unusual thing, like any of the big streaming shows that release weekly, you can go and watch them in the cinema on the big screen and have that real deluxe experience. And you can part of the experience of going to the Netflix Stranger Things season 8 weekly episode launch is, that you get to congregate afterwards and talk about it and debate, and it's more of almost like a community cinema thing. Maybe we see some of that, and then
you turn up and watch the new season, the first season of The Bachelor. I mean, you can break up in individual discussion groups afterwards to discuss the use of, Andrew G as a Christ figure, that kind of thing. It's an idea. It used to run that way 100 years ago. The actual studios own theaters. I don't think they're allowed to in the States, but they, as you say, they may choose to. Maybe Village becomes Village Disney or Village aren't doing very well, quite frankly, in Australia. So Village Roadshow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they could, in theory, if it's legal, be bought out by a Disney, and it could be Disney Village or something like that, as you say.
Yeah.
And that would be an interesting thing, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be a fascinating thing? Is that if Disney Village was the only place you could go and see Marvel, Star Wars films, not only that, but as you say, they could also The Mandalorian could play,
all of that content locked under the Disney banner, and you have to have Disney Plus if you want to watch any of it, and you have to go to one of their sponsored cinemas. They're guaranteed to make money because people.
I don't think it'd be very popular though.
It wouldn't be popular, but people would complain about it, but they'd still fucking go because people always want to be able to go. Oh yeah, like for me, I have no interest in watching The Mandalorian. I have already got all of the Marvel movies, and I've already got Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but I really love Gravity Falls, and I have to get Disney Plus for that. And it's like, well, that's really fucking annoying. Eventually, I'll probably cave because at least I'll be able to watch that, and I know that I'll be able to just watch the other shit as well.
You know what the key will be? Is wait till the whole season's out. Sign up for a week's trial or whatever it is, because they'll have one. They all do.
Of course.
Smash it in the weekend and cancel your trial.
Mm-hmm.
Mandalorian's first episode has dropped, by the way, and it has a 66 Metascore.
Yep.
And a
pretty much exactly where I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
I'd be curious to see how it goes, but
not great.
Yeah. I just wanted to quickly talk about two things that I have consumed. And the first one of those is Luigi's Mansion 3 on Nintendo Switch. It is the long-awaited console sequel to the Luigi's Mansion franchise, which started on the GameCube. It was the Mario Brothers associated launch title for the GameCube, because there was no actual Mario game at launch of GameCube. And it's exactly as the name suggests, Luigi in a mansion, but it's filled with ghosts, and you go around sucking them up with the Poltergust, and you have to rescue Mario and Peach and Toad and things like that as you go through. The second one got released on the 3DS, and this is the third one, and it is wonderful. It is just a delight. It is beautifully animated. It is funny. It is really, they use the very simple idea of you have a vacuum cleaner, essentially, that you suck up ghosts with. You have a flashlight that stuns the ghosts, so you can suck them up, and you can slam them against things. And with the vacuum cleaner, you can put it on blow to blow things away, and you can get a little extra hop and jump with the vacuum cleaner. Those are all the moves, basically. But they do so much inventive boss battles and creativity within those very simple ones that no matter how good you are at sucking up a ghost and taking on a room with 12 ghosts in it at once, you'll inevitably find somewhere in the game and you're just like, oh, for fuck's sake! And it's just constantly challenging, even though the base core controls and core methodology of the game are so simple to pick up and understand. Lovely. Really, really wonderful.
It has an 85 on Metacritic, so that's fairly universal acclaim. And I've played one of these games, believe it or not. I played an arcade version of Luigi's Mansion in Japan a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Except that was I think I lasted about 2 minutes before I needed to put more coins in. So,
yeah,
typical arcade game, super hard.
Yep, and expensive.
But this goes okay on TV mode and handheld.
Yeah, in fact, you get slightly better frame rate, I think. It feels like that when you're on the TV mode, when it's docked, because you just got a little bit more juice running through the system. But honestly, I loved having the closeness because it's not full-on gyroscopic control with aiming of the vacuum cleaner and stuff, but it certainly helps being able to sort of lift it up and down and just having that closeness. It just feels nice and intimate because it is a spooky, even though funny game. I like playing those kind of games up close and personal. Any of the Resident Evil games, I prefer to play those handheld just because I like having the lights down and just the light of the screen being all that I have, and it's nice and intimate and a little bit more creepy. But fantastic performance on both handheld and on the screen, as is the case for pretty much every first-party Nintendo game. There's only certain elements of Breath of the Wild that slug when they're on handheld for frame rate. But yeah, it's really, really good fun. It is annoying. I'm fighting King Boo and at the end of the game, and it is a difficulty spike that is frustrating when they do that in game. It's just forcing you to do things that you haven't really had much, if any, opportunity to kind of practice those techniques beforehand. It's not there's not a nice gradual evolution into this where you've had a chance to get a new tactic and master it and then move on. This, you having to do a lot more on the fly, and it is just much harder compared to every other boss, but still enjoyable. And it's you can get kind of extra lives, which are golden bones. You can buy them, and there's so much fucking money everywhere in the game that you do not ever need to worry about running out of lives. It's typical Mario game in that regard. That's
a good value, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In 2 days, we've got Pokemon launching, first major home console Pokemon game for the core franchise, and that's going to be interesting. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about is Amazon Prime's Jack Ryan show. Have you watched any of this?
The first episode. I watched season 1, and I watched the first episode of season 2 last week.
I started watching it, and then 3 days later, I had watched all of season 1 and all of season 2. It really gripped me. I really, really liked it. I felt a lot of similar kind of vibes to the pacing of it as something like the early seasons of 24, but not the direness that was in those, particularly the first 2 seasons of 24. It was much more easy to watch. And John Krasinski is really enjoyable as an actor, and he delivers a good performance. I think everything about it is very well done. There's good production value to it. It was just easy watch TV that felt like you could feel the quality of the production behind it, and it just engaged with me, and I just wanted to watch another episode straight away, and I was glad I was able to do that.
I think it's okay.
Fair enough. God is hidden.
I know I got a lot of rave reviews. A lot of people said it was the best thing that Prime had done. Not that that's hard. But Man the High Castle was good. But yeah, it's good. It's good, I guess. It's just I don't buy John Krasinski as an action hero. I know he's in that Michael Bay movie. He's always that dweeby guy from The Office for me. And it's fine, as you say. I never got into 24. I think I ever watched 24. But I don't want to be. I feel like I'm being hypercritical because it's fine.
There's nothing wrong with it. It is the Marvel movie of TV. It is absolutely enjoyable while you're watching it. I haven't really thought about it since watching it, but I enjoyed my time with it.
As you say, look, I kind of prefer the films. I like the Jack Ryan films. I'm a big fan of most of them. It was it's fun. As you say, I can put it on and ignore it, but but at the same time, I'm struggling to remember what happened in season 1. It was just like, it was the Middle Eastern angle, right? They killed the terrorist guy. Spoilers. Look, you know,
Or today.
but the new season set in South America. Bad guy of the season are South Americans. I just can't wait to they. Used to be a stand-up comedian who used to say, I'm sure told you, he used to do a bit about there's two countries that will never have a James Bond villain, one being Ireland and the other one Australia, because no one can make the accent sound menacing. So, James, got a giant crocodile, got in drunk, and filled it full of knives. How's that then?
Yeah, Mr. Bond.
It's truth. But yeah, so I don't know, like it's by the numbers. It's
It's fine.
I'm very critical. It's a lot better than a lot of the shit that I watch on I see on Prime. It's supposed to be good, which I can't stand. But yeah,
there's some interesting choices on Prime. But yeah, I've started rewatching from season 1, Man in the High Castle, and that is an episode that a show that it's hard to just binge watch, and you want to pay attention to it because it's just gloriously produced. Everything
but
about it.
By one of our favorite authors,
Mm-hmm.
you know, none of Philip K. Dick done with kind of respect for the source material, reverentially done. You know, if they just followed the books, it'll all be a lot better.
Who'd have thought follow source material and it actually good?
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan, I'm looking at you in Avatar.
You're not gonna get it. You're not gonna get forgiven for that one anytime soon, is he?
No, he's not. Yeah, that's kind of all I've really.
Professional wrestling, television, cinema, future of cinema, future of online streaming. That's a show, people. You get everything in one place.
Yeah.
Trump jokes included. That was subtle tonight. That was subtle, but they were there.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We do apologize for taking the time off, but I was busy putting the finishing touches to my book, which is now available on Amazon, on the UK and US stores if you want to get the paperback version, or you can get the digital version anywhere on the Amazon wonderful internet connection. Hopefully, I'm going to, when I can afford it, I will be ordering a bunch to be able to sell directly from myself for Australian buyers, so they aren't paying double for the book just because of fucking postage. But
he's selling him at the back of his car at 9:00 in the car park at Uni Hill. Just look for the dodgy-looking guy with the Prius.
I don't have the Prius anymore.
Make that one personal. Yeah. Just look for the guy on the side of the road with his boot up and sunglasses on in the middle of the night. He'll be the guy selling books.
Yeah. Like, hey, you want to buy a book? I got some really good books. Yeah, on that bizarre note, please, it'd be great if you could support me digitally or physical. But I understand the physical side is very cost demanding in Australia. But if you just feel like it, you know, I think it's $3.99 for the digital version, and yeah, that's not much. Even if you just buy it and don't read it, I don't care. But the work on my next book is already working. What's that?
If all the books I've read about vampires in Paris, it's far and away the most recent.
It's not about vampires. There's a vampire in it.
Yeah.
But it's not your traditional vampire.
No, this ain't your grandmama's vampire film. This ain't Dracula, you know. It's there's all sorts of shit going on in this world.
There's no fucking sparkling.
No sparkling, and encouragingly, any subtext, as usual, went completely over my head. So you know it's good. You know, if the subtext is going over my head, it's there. It's happening, right?
Yeah, and if you don't get it, you can just pretend that you did and, you know, feel a sense of accomplishment wash over you.
Yeah, you can be snooty when they turn it into a freaking Prime series and go, well, I read the book.
Incidentally, it has actually been entered into a competition to maybe be picked up by Amazon Prime to be adapted into a TV show.
Here you go. I wasn't even joking. I knew it, guys. It's happening.
We have said it from the very beginning of doing this show. We are sellout shills.
We are. We'll sell anything.
On that note, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll see you next time.
Ask me how I am. Tell me what's beneath this sleep. There's something else in place, and in the silence, those words will keep. We'll keep. We'll keep. What is your truth? Has it been blurred by time? Has it seeped away from you? What is your truth? We dread this ebb and flow. It's taking pieces bit by bit. The more we're shown, the less we know. Helpless by all and after still. We'll keep. What is your truth? Has it been blurred by time? Has it seeped away from you? What is your truth? We'll keep. We'll keep.